of staffing. You hire one manager who's going to be in charge of inventory. You have one manager who's going to be in charge of basically accounting and finance. You have a different manager in charge of each aspect of the business. And when you first open the business, you open the business with people that you know can do the jobs you're hiring them to do. But then over time, those people that you hired go out and start their own businesses. Then you have to hire their replacements, and the people you hire to be their replacements, they're just not good at their job. If someone is not good at their job, it's hard to rationalize. Okay? It's hard to understand why they should have a job. I understand that. There's a lot of Eagle fans out there that look at the Eagles and they say, look, Sirianni did a bad job this year, okay? And there's a lot of people who feel that way. But I don't think Sirianni is the biggest problem here. Chris Long from the Green Light podcast broke down the Eagles this way.
The personnel sucked on defense. Obviously, the scheme wasn't great either, but the personnel was the number one problem. When I look at the offense, I look at personnel as being the same group largely that went to the Super Bowl and was this close to beating the Chiefs. And the head coach that was the head coach there was Nick Sirianni. And I think they look at it like we can fix the scheme. And that's the difference between that team a year ago and this team.
You heard him mention about personnel. I don't think that we can undersell the fact that the Eagles went to the roulette table. They called black once, they hit it. And then they called black again, moved all their chips to the middle of the table, and lost. Howie Roseman is usually very good at what he does. But the Eagles general manager made some explicit errors in building this defense. And Chris Long is not the only one who said this. A lot of people who know football look at the Eagles defense and say this team, as currently constructed, is not good. So if you're going to replace the defensive coordinator and you're going to retool the defense, how is any of that Nick Sirianni's fault? Now, if you are a person who believes that Nick Sirianni hired Sean Desai and Nick Sirianni was the guy who was basically that Brian Johnson was going to be the coordinator, well, Chris Long has a different story on that front from the Green Light podcast.
I think Howie likes to control as much as he can. I think Howie does a really good job as a GM, but he definitely wants to do what he wants to do. And when you have somebody like Doug, former player, now a coach with a Super Bowl ring, if they're not seeing eye to eye, he's throwing his weight around. I don't like this so much. And somebody like Nick Sirianni, the reason they hired him, I thought partially was because he could work in concert with Howie and never have a leg up on Howie.
See, Sirianni works in concert. He gets along with, he works in tandem with. Whatever word you want to use, whatever terminology you want to throw out there, Sirianni is not an independent maverick doing whatever he feels like. He's someone who's going out there and falling in line with the game plan that him and the Eagles general manager put together. ESPN NFL reporter Sal Palantonio earlier today with Mike Gill on the Sports Bash said this.
Nick Sirianni may be calling some of his friends, but he's not in any position at all in his organization. I think we can agree on this, to hire somebody. He may recommend somebody, but he's not hiring the offensive or defensive coordinators. That's for sure.
So maybe as much as there are people who want to point the finger aggressively at Sirianni, maybe the problem has nothing to do with Sirianni, but it has to do with the coordinators. And if it has to do with the coordinators, then the focus needs to be on how you're going to fix this problem. And I think for the Eagles, there is a way to fix the problem. If you hire the right people, if you bring in the right coaching staff, and that's what this meeting with Jeffrey Lurie was about. The meeting with Lurie was to say, here's what we want to do to get out of the predicament we are in. This is our way forward. This is how we do not allow what you saw this year happen again. And I think for the Eagles, if you change coordinators, if you change offensive and defensive schemes, I think there's an opportunity for you to not have this repeat itself. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result. Well, if you are Philadelphia, the only way to ensure yourself a different result is you have to go out and change what you are doing out there. And just like somebody who is a business might have to hire different managers if they want to avoid the situation they are in, they're going to have to do it. One of the problems with the Eagles offensively was that it was Brian Johnson calling Nick Sirianni's offense, Sean Desai calling Vic Fangio's defense, and then Matt Patricia trying to call Sean Desai's variation of Vic Fangio's offense. You see how we're getting further and further away from the source material? Howie Long on the Eagles said this.
And I think on offense, it was more about the system and less about the players. But on defense, it was a combined kind of shortcoming, both from a scheme standpoint and a personnel standpoint.
Again, these are people who played in the NFL. They watched the game. They analyzed the game as good, if not better, than anyone out there. And there's really nobody in their right mind who disagrees with this, okay? Now, whether that is let's bring in a West Coast offense guy and maybe go back to the Y9 defensively, or if it's, let's go with a cover 3 defensive system on defense and more of the Jim Harbaugh, under center, running the ball, passing the game off of the run game offense, whatever variation we are referring to, the reality is that something has to change. What you were doing was not working. And so if the easiest thing to fix is the coordinators, let's fix it. And there's no doubt in my mind that Howie Roseman is going to spend this offseason retooling this roster. There is no doubt in my mind that Howie is not going to be complacent. It's not in his DNA. It's not his personality. And everything that we know about these guys tells you that Howie's going to make moves this offseason. We don't know how he's going to make it, but Roseman is the kind of guy that always seems to pull a rabbit out of the hat. Do we really think that we all saw A.J. Brown coming from a mile away or Jalen Carter from a mile away? We didn't see any of this stuff coming. But yet, here we are. See how he is. There will be a move he makes this offseason that we didn't see coming. We'll talk more about the Eagles offseason coming up next with Chris Franklin from NJ Advanced Media, plus your text a little bit later this hour, 609-403-0973, and your DMs into the 973 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City.
It's Philadelphia Flyers hot tomorrow afternoon on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Listen as Tim Saunders and Todd Fedor bring you all the exciting play-by-play action.
The shot, down the rebound, they score! Who else but Cam Atkinson?
It's Flyers Avalanche tomorrow afternoon. Coverage begins at 1 p.m. It's Flyers hockey all season long on South Jersey's radio home for Philadelphia Flyers hockey. 97.3 ESPN.
Stop the countdown. Don't let the new year pass you by without upgrading your ride. So bring any trade, no matter the make, mileage, or condition. We'll take it, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, and put you into a new matte black Kia with low, 0 down payments, 0.9% financing, and 0 down payments until April. And only matte black Kia has a 4-day love it or leave it return policy. We know bad things happen to good people. We want to approve you. We finance your future, not your past. Even if you're currently stuck in a loan or lease, we want to get you released and into your new matte black Kia with 0 down, 0 payments until April on every new Kia in stock.
It's gotta be a matte black Kia.
With approved credit, not all will qualify. Credit may affect down payments. Offers can be combined. Go to matteblackkianj.com for complete details. 888-505-6670. Price includes all costs to be paid by consumer, except for licensing, registration, and taxes through KMF at $21.22 per thousand for 48 months. Rebates and incentives to dealer. Expires 2/2/24. Matte Black Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Harbor Township. On Route 37 in Toms River.
DismeCoins.com is the best site online to purchase Trump commemorative coins because no one else features the exclusive Ultra MAGA Trump coin line. Whether it's Let's Go Brandon or Still My President, each and every coin is made right here in the USA on machines built in America by Americans who love this country. These are collectibles, so when they're gone, they're gone. These coins make a wonderful gift for yourself or for the Trump memorabilia collector in your life with free shipping for orders over $400 at DismeCoins.com. That's DISME coins.com.
Champion Exteriors, Champion, the one you call first. Voted best of the best in Jersey Shores. For roofing and siding, windows and doors. 24-month financing, no payments, no interest. You're certified GAF elite contractors. Champion-exteriors.com. Champion Exteriors, Champion, the one you call first.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-294-8831 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-294-8831. That's 800-294-8831. What do you have to lose? Call 800-294-8831. Again, 800-294-8831.
In Jersey, we're pretty lucky. For starters, we don't pump our own gas because why would you want to? We've got 130 miles of gorgeous shoreline, and each of us has a favorite spot. Jersey is the world's diner capital, which means a cannoli is always close by. And get this, Jersey lottery players win millions of dollars every single day. What a reason to try your Jersey luck. Yo, I won! Anything can happen in Jersey.
Must be 18 or older to buy a lottery ticket. Please play responsibly. If you're somebody who knows a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
We're for Washington. We love Febrez's new scent. Refresh and energize.
So much we made a song about it.
I can't escape this feeling. It's a move. It's a vibe. Breathing for the first time. No breeze, no light. Breathe happy for free. Smells like paradise.
97.3 ESPN has teamed up with Seize the Deal for incredible weekly offers from some fantastic local restaurants. Here's this week's big deal.
Get a $50 gift card good for use at Vincenzo's Ristorante in Galloway for just $25.
This great deal is on sale now at seizethedeal.com. Hurry, chances are this deal will sell quickly. For more info on this great deal, go to seizethedeal.com.
Seize the deal.
This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Before we get to Chris Franklin from NJ Advanced Media, Eagles beat writer, I got to mention, I'm chuckling back here in the studio here on the 97.3 ESPN studios. One, because I'm by myself in the entire building. And number two, I love how an hour after Antonio Pierce is basically confirmed to be the new head coach of the Raiders, that the Atlanta Falcons have already like lined up multiple coaching, like Bill Belichick's gonna get a second interview. Now Jim Harbaugh's gonna get a second interview. And now Mike Vrabel's being scheduled for an interview. It's like, I love how these dominoes happen. It's like one move happens and everybody just starts losing their minds, going into an accelerator mode. Like it's always funny to me how these situations play out. And it's probably part of the reason why Jeffrey Lurie and the Eagles are taking their good old time with what they are going to do. By the way, David Shaw is getting his third head coaching interview. He's going to interview with the Titans next, so good for him. That guy's making the rounds as well. Chris Franklin, NJ.com, joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Chris, anybody calling you for any interviews for head coaching gigs?
I mean, I'm available to be an offensive coordinator. If somebody wants to go, if you want to run the run and shoot type offense and spread thing, hey, I'm available. I can devise something. I can do something. It'd be fun. But you know, I'll bring you on if you want to go join the staff. I'll definitely have a spot for you, man. You're definitely hired if you want.
My expertise is on the defensive side. So there was a plethora of reasons why they wouldn't let me play offense much when I played football. So.
It can't be that bad, man. It can't be that bad. You know, you be the quality control coach. That way you can help you out to see what the defenses are doing. I mean, devise something up that way. There you go. It's perfect.
Quality control coach is another way of saying I have to go get your coffee. That's what you're really saying.
Yeah, no, not my system. It'll be a justice system. No Xeroxes, no PowerPoints, nothing.
Chris, let's get people updated on what's going on, because I think a lot of people were confused. Like there was so much confusion about what was going on today that there were literally people in the national media who had actually no idea that Nick Sirianni and Jeffrey Lurie were speaking today. So just give everybody a little bit of an encapsulation of, you know, what is actually happened leading up to today and today.
Well, pretty much right now, it's basically they wanted Sirianni and Roseman. You see those previous reports. So basically, they're looking for coordinator candidates to hire in here. So it gives you one leeway. You definitely know that the defensive staff is going to see a lot of changes that way. So that was the big one. They're also the thing that's eye-raising about the offensive candidates is I think it's one of those things they're preparing just in case Brian Johnson gets a head coaching job, which I know a lot of people are like, wait, why is Brian Johnson considered? He's still considered a very good. When you look at the numbers of the team, I know they and I'm not trying to put a wall here and say, oh, it's great. But yeah, you look at the overall numbers for his offense, it's still big enough. And what he's done with Jalen Hurts and with all these teams that are looking for coaches needing people to develop their quarterbacks, he's in high demand right now. So I think they're also looking at candidates in case he does get one of these head coaching jobs in the future. But pretty much today, like in the NovaCare complex, Howie, Jeffrey, and Nick are basically talking everything else going on right now and seeing what comes of plan. Basically, it's like for like the Pope. We haven't seen any white smoke come out the chimney yet to know what's going on. And yeah, I think if anything, we find out early next week. I think Nick stays though. It's done.
When you think about, because you mentioned about Brian Johnson, my personal opinion about Johnson is, I think for him, Nick Sirianni told you guys in the media that Brian calls his offense. So if Brian's calling his offense and then Sean Desai is calling his version of Fangio's defense, and then Patricia is calling Desai's defense, how am I supposed to really blame anyone when there was just a complete ball of confusion going on here?
Sounds like an algebra problem right now with all that stuff. It's able to all that stuff. That's one of those. But yeah, it needs to be sorted out. And in all honesty, I think the head coach does have say over the type of defense he wants, types of offense he wants. And I think you're looking at a point where I think you see Steichen had some say and put his little touches, and now it's a matter of Johnson was trying to put his touches on there. Or getting overridden a couple of times on, especially on some of those calls when depending on the game situation. So you saw, be it the wide receiver screens, the draws, the QB draws, stuff like that. But it's one of those things. I actually kind of, I know Brian Johnson gets a lot of blame for this stuff. I kind of want to see him open up and let him do his own thing a little bit more and forward, because he knows Jalen very well. He knows his strengths. He's a former quarterback, so that helps out knowing what a quarterback sees and just tweaking it, getting more input, putting a few more of his touches on that offense when it comes to the defense. I just want to see it become more aggressive and just fire this whole defense, the Fangio system. It's time to move on from it because they're more passive and not as aggressive. I think you get an aggressive-minded coach, you can get better results from the defense, especially with the players they have.
You say they should get more aggressive on the defense, which I agree with, by the way. I don't disagree with it. But what is the type of defense we're talking about then? Because, I mean, Buddy Ryan ain't walking through that door if we're playing the Rick Pitino game, right? Vic Fangio is down in Miami. You don't want Rex Ryan coming off a TV on this sideline. So, what kind of defense do you think is the kind of defense that the Eagles should be looking into?
I think you should look at the college ranks. Two things I would definitely look at, and it fits what they do very well here, or when they had their success in 2022, was Jesse Minter at Michigan and potentially Glenn Schumann, another Georgia guy. But the reason why I like those guys is they play the multiple fronts, so you don't have to completely retrofit that defense to do. You have a lot of the same players you can do that way too. The reason why I like those guys is you don't see a lot of them dropping back into coverage that much. I think you got that. B, one thing I like about Mentor a lot is that he's a former NFL defensive backs coach with the Ravens, and he mixes up his coverage, knows how to disguise his coverages, and it meshes well with what the pass front rush was doing, which last year didn't do we saw that happen where basically all three levels are doing their own thing. So I'm looking for a young mind guy coach, and we see a lot of stuff that teams are using right now. It comes from the college level. Why not get a guy who's seen this stuff already, who already has a plan for it, and they can stop it? That's why I'm looking at Mentor, and Glenn Schumann. Wink Martindale, I know it's in there, but if he's not talking to Dable, who Sirianni had a relationship with beforehand, yeah, he can still come here. I mean, from media side, from us, we're just looking like, okay, it's going to be fireworks between those two because they're very passionate people. We're going to see something there. But yeah, I think Mentor and Schumann would be two guys that will really fit for this team.
Talking with Chris Franklin, covers the Eagles for NJ Advanced Media. Check out all of his Eagles coverage over at NJ.com. Josh Hennick here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Chris, is Nick Sirianni a guy who is just dependent on who are the coaches around him? Is he the kind of head coach that is only as good as the talent around him?
I think that's every head coach, even with Belichick. I think we're seeing it a little bit now as well, too, because when you look at Belichick, Bill O'Brien, I don't know for a life of me how he continues to get work everywhere he goes, and he's at Ohio State now, which hold on, story. But you look at that's for everybody. And when you have talented staff, the thing is, if you're really good at what you're doing, your teams are always successful. You always have a backup plan, and it's a good succession plan that happened. And we didn't see that this time. I think the one guy they looked like they were really banking on being a defensive coordinator was either Vangio or Rallis, and we know what happened with Rallis, and he wasn't too happy about that. So you couldn't get Vangio because of what happened with Gannon too. So he was already in building, and they liked to promote from within. So this next group, whoever they hire, they need to not only make sure they get the good coordinators, they need to make sure they get the good assistants, the quality control, the senior defensive assistant. They need to have these successions planned in there because you don't want to be like what happened with Doug. We look at Doug once he lost Frank Reich and Jim Schwartz, but once he lost Frank Reich, we saw the Mike Rose and and finally Press Taylor wanting to hire Press Taylor got him fired. So they need to continue that. Nick needs to continue to have good backup plans sexually and build up that talent at that coaching levels on the position areas so he won't find himself in a position like this again. If he does, I think he's more likely gone than not.
When you think about what this team, because you mentioned about having better people, right? What happened then this past cycle that they ended up with these people? Because you know how Eagle fans are, Chris. Eagle fans are saying, well, if this is what you're supposed to do, how did you end up with this guy, this guy, this guy? Like, how, because we all know, Chris, Nick Sirianni he's not Bill Parcells. He's not, operating autonomously. He's got Howie Roseman he's working with. He's getting permission from the owner, Jeffrey Lurie. So how did the Eagles then get this last hiring cycle of coaches and coordinators so wrong?
I think they lost their guy. They waited too long, and especially when it was a matter of they were so successful that when by the time they actually had a chance to sign some of these guys, the best guys were already off the board because they've been signed. Coach has been signed. They've going to other defensive coordinators. But then you look at you overvalue. There's too much of worrying about playing a certain type of system, and then I think when you look at that, that's where you start to get size and everything else. Say Fangio was there, I think he really would have been the defensive coordinator there too. And looking back on it now, you kind of wish you had Denard Wilson at least in some sense, because I think he should have been more thought of as a candidate too, because he would have kept a lot of his guys. Because you saw what happened with that secondary. Now, once you lost him, it regressed, and I think he would have still had. I think the defense still would have been going to him because he learned under Greg Williams and that attacking system, but it didn't fit the whole Fangio zone matchups type stuff they wanted to do. So yeah, it didn't help. I mean, you'd obviously take a chance to go to the Super Bowl over anything, but I think that put them behind the 8 ball by the time the season was over, and some of the other moves they made with Gannon and everything else, they just scrambled a little bit, and they had to take what the best they can get.
Chris, I've heard multiple Chris Franklin from NJ Advanced Media joining us here. He covers the Eagles for NJ.com. I've heard Chris Long and Howie Long both describe the Eagles' defensive personnel in very unfavorable terms, to the point where basically saying they suck. So, what can be done to fix the defensive personnel so they don't get called derogatory names next year?
Well, the one thing, a couple things. One is better personality. You need another cornerback, that's for sure. And looking at this way, I think it's going to depend on who they hires DC. I think you need. I think you use that first round pick. Maybe you use one of those comp picks to trade up a couple spots in order to get a shutdown type corner, and to use that for the future because Slade's getting older, Bradbury's getting older, and you have Ringo. You have a nice decent Ringo who can still continue to develop, but I still think you just need another one. I know we had Ricks. Eli Ricks got some run as well too. Rich got some run. These young guys did that. They also need to really use either one of those second round picks, preferably the higher the second round picks on a linebacker. They desperately need one. Right now, you have Nakobe Dean coming back from the Liz Frank injury that he had, and Ben Van Summer are your only 2 linebackers that you have under contract. And out of all of them, would I like to see Zach Cunningham come back? Yeah, okay. But other than that, you need a coverage mind, a 3-down linebacker who was coverage minded to cover those large middle parts of the field where teams got gas. A lot of stuff is going to have to come from the draft. It looks like because remember you still have to. You're looking at Devonta Smith potentially getting an extension. I mean, the Dickerson still getting an extension. You can make some moves and create some room with some restructures, but it's not like you're going to get like $60-70 million in cap space that you're going to have to sign a lot of big tier guys. So a lot of it's going to be you're relying on somebody to scheme what they have and relying on these young guys in this core of this defense to get better.
Do they have enough young guys to rely on is the question. Because I think a lot of people came into the year, they looked at Jalen Carter, looked at Jordan Davis, they looked at Nakobe Dean, they looked at all these Georgia guys, right? They looked at all the picks that they made. We all assumed coming into the year that they had a bunch of dudes. Do they still have a bunch of dudes, Chris? Or was this past year just a rough year for everyone?
I think they have the guys. I think they're just mismanaged a lot. The court, like if you say about James Bradbury, yeah, he took a step back. I know Slade gets a lot of slack, but when you look at his overall numbers, I think he's still your best cornerback you have. And I think he's still a good guy you want to have on that team, especially if you got a lot of young guys to lead that. I think a lot of that stuff with Davis and also Carter was lack of inconsistency and Carter hitting the rookie wall. So I think that was a big thing on that too. You need another edge rusher. I think another thing that's popped this up as well too, an edge rusher. You need another guy because these guys they weren't as effective. I think he took the teeth out of them when he kept having them drop back and playing passively like they did. But I think you just need another edge rusher to give them a break because Hassan Ragg's is starting to get up there. Now you got to look at him too, and Josh Sweat can use a break as well too once in a while. So yeah, they're still. I think they're a couple of players away from being that, but whoever they hire cannot mismanage what they have because there's definitely still some good assets on that side of the ball.
Offensively, it's been suggested that the problem is the scheme. It's not the players. how do they fix the offense next year? Because a lot of people are really down on Jalen Hurts right now. Chris, I've been getting messages, people saying he regressed. He's a one-hit wonder. He's a guy who is not as good as we all thought he was. He's just a running quarterback who had a good year. The narrative's out there all over the place. So how does this team get Jalen Hurts back on track?
I think you need to send him back out to Southern California again, and maybe get him townhouse, or maybe get him with another thing. You go over some of his coverage reads and everything else. And it's every offense. And the one thing, especially when you look at every offense, has blitz contingencies in there. You can tag different routes and tell them alert. And you need your wide receivers to also be on the same page as well too, because there's so many times when you saw that one pass to Devontae Smith where he got 35 yards, where he was over the middle when they were blitzing. It was a crossing route, and I don't know what it is about Hurts and not wanting to throw over the middle. Because as I mentioned before, every offense has a check to it. He didn't check a lot to those slants or those quick routes where the space was vacated, and a lot of times it's in the middle of the field. He just avoided it. So I don't know if it's something where he needs to work on shuffling in the pocket a little bit more so he can get to the throwing window, especially when he gets under pressure. If it's something where he just needs to change the whole entire play or something, what have you. But I think it's some things when it comes to the coverage, not only just reading the coverages, make sure he gets the ball out quicker and work on his mechanics so that he feels more comfortable throwing over the middle of the field.
What is your take then on the people who say that the offense that was being given to Jalen was not good enough? Like, for example, guys like Brian Baldinger saying there were too many predetermined throws built into this offense.
There's a lot of box counts. A lot of stuff was box counts, and teams started to manipulate that. Part of it, I think, is the coaching aspect of where, hey, you know what, doing this. Part of it's on Jalen as well too. You know, it can't all be on the coach that's like, okay, well, they have to decide and design. Sometimes you design it, and then there's a check or an audible that's made, and the next thing you know, it's going on something that's not done as well. So, or the right decision. So, I look at that as I think there's some tweaks that need to be made. I don't think they need to run as many RPRs as they did beforehand. I think that you can still do that. He's been in the league now 4 years. You got to have faith that he's got to know seeing some of these defenses for third, fourth, fifth times now. You got to get used to it. But yeah, you can't continually run RPRs because not only are you going to put him in position to see more hits and everything else like that, he's just starting to manipulate the box of like, oh yeah, reverse show like we're going to stop the run, and all of a sudden you run out to the flats. But you're running those. They see the screens won't come that way too. So it's a little bit of both. It's still mixed up with both. But they need to improve on that.
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit on that for one point, Chris. I think that, it's nothing wrong with running an RPO if you actually run the ball off of the RPO and you don't have the entire field slanted to one side. Because I felt like so many times the offense was Hurts fakes the run. He has option one, option two, and then run or scramble or move around. Like, it didn't feel like the offense was an RPO at offense. It felt like a high school version of RPO offense.
The things what the teams were doing too, they got hit too, was they were starting to double blitz after telling their edges to say, hey, you know what, play around the inside and turn them back in, and that's what made it a little effective when it's stopping them in the R part. And when it comes, and like when you look at the other stuff, it's like I think the scrambles are like getting a lot better. Receivers do a lot better. Like you can't have two guys running in the same spot. Like, and this is one thing. Even back in last year, 2022, under Steichen, the team seemed to have issues with when it came to the scramble drill. Is they wanted to look like that five-sided guy. Well, if you look at a side of dice, the number 5 spot, you had the problem was you had them all bunched in one area, so you had like 2 defenders covering 3 guys, or you're not going to throw it there because it's so bunched up. And then Hurts had to try to buy time and eventually had to throw away. So that's one thing. A part of it is like you can coach that to death, but if the receivers aren't running it the right way, you got to start talking to them, and they're like, yo, guys, what are you doing? So, yeah, it's symbiotic with those two things. It's like it's almost chicken and egg. Well, if you do the coaching staff, then it's the players to get the coaching staff. It's maybe the rest of the time off that gives them some time to reset, refocus, and fix a lot of this stuff and try some different things.
Chris, before I let you go, who is the free agent that you expect to be back the most? And who is the free agent that you would be surprised if he's back?
Ooh. The one I think will be back, and I'm cheating because it's not because he's restricted, And that's the only one I see right now coming back is Jack Stoll. That's it. Because everybody else, I think Swift gets paid and goes somewhere else, and this team is really in a situation where you're looking at signing somebody else well too. And then, I'll go over the limb. I'll say Cunningham might be the one's back just because of the. I think he comes back like the one I expect because of the numbers they have in the middle. The one I don't expect to be back, I'll be surprised would be DeAndre Swift. I really would be surprised because somebody's going to pay him a lot of money. The team's not going to franchise him. Nobody ever uses a transition tag anymore, so that's out the window. And he's going to be a demand. And even especially once you got guys like Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Saquon off the board, all of a sudden you're looking like, well, DeAndre, he's got some explosiveness. He did well behind a good offensive line. Somebody sign him. I think somebody's going to do that. So it's going to be another year. You're either looking at a trade or a free agent running back, or maybe a draft one. Yeah, they're going to be thin there. And that's another spot they really need to sign some running backs. So I don't think it's a guarantee that Penny's not going to go, and I don't know if it's a guarantee that Boston Scott's going to come back either. No guarantee.
Yeah, I don't think Scott's back. I'm 50-50 on Swift. I think a lot of guys are not back, honestly. A lot of these 1-year guys, I think that it was one and done for some of these guys. I also don't think Fletcher's back. I think he's gone as well.
Yep. He's with that. So the way that Jordan Davis was talking when he was cleaning out his locker, the way he sounded like it sounds like it's going to be Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter being the leaders of that defensive tackle group. Because he was acting like Fletcher's time with the Eagles was done.
He's Chris Franklin. Follow him on Twitter at CFranklin News on the Twitter X platform, NJ Advanced Media, Eagles beat writer, all of his work over at NJ.com. Chris, I appreciate you jumping on today. I know it's been a weird week for all you guys covering the team. So,
no worries. It's always great talking to you, Josh, man. Hey, weird makes it interesting. So, hey, why not? Why not go for it?
It's like Michael Keaton and Batman. So you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. That's what the Eagles are doing right now. Always great to talk with Chris. Hey, we'll get more text on the other side. 609-403-0973. George in Summers Point, your text and more coming up here on 97.3 ESPN.
It's Sixers basketball tonight on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the Sixers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
Maxey steps back, three-point shot up. It's good. Maxey delivering. The Sixers take the lead, and the crowd is absolutely stunned.
It's Sixers match tonight. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. It's Sixers basketball all season long on South Jersey's radio home for Philadelphia 76ers basketball. 97.3 ESPN.
Hey, Phillies fans, the countdown to pitchers and catchers reporting is officially underway. This March, Phillies Sports Trips wants you to join them as they escape the cold weather and travel to spring training in Clearwater Beach, Florida. This incredible package includes round-trip airfare, hotel, tickets to 2 Phillies games, an all-inclusive tailgate, a yacht party, and so much more. You're not going to want to miss this experience. Don't wait to book because these spots will sell out. Visit PhilliesSportsTrips.com to book your trip today.
Ask Sherwin-Williams during the January winter sale, January 12th through the 22nd, and get 30% off paints and stains with prices starting at $31.14. That means 30% off our most popular color family, blue. Psychologists have found it to be soothing and relaxing, which makes it especially great for bedrooms and bathrooms. And of course, get 30% off all of our other colors. Shop the sale online or visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
I hate free money and finishing first. Said no one ever. At Raceway Kia, you'll finish first with 0 down, 0 interest, and 0 payments for 90 days. And right now, you can lease a rugged new 2023 Kia Sorento for only $199 a month. Stop by Raceway Kia today or visit online at racewaykia.com. Ends 131-24 OAC with KM 3 years, 30,000 miles for $49.95 to its signing. Tax, title, license, and fees extra. Security deposit waived. Stock number PG248651.
I have diabetes. I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
I have asthma. I'm at risk too.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine, a Pfizer vaccine that can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just 1 dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Hi, this is Brighton Richards from Apex East Roofing. You know, the blonde-haired girl in the pink truck. If you've been having issues with your roof from all the rain over the last few weeks, or if you're just worried about leaks from upcoming storms this winter, give us a call. We can be at your house within 24 to 48 hours for an estimate and install a new roof within 1 to 7 business days. We also do emergency tarping and repairs, as well as siding and gutters.
Get a price on your roof in 30 seconds at ApexEastRoofing.com.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up spills quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less than the leading ordinary brand. So you can get back to your night. Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
With GMF financing to qualified buyers excludes Corvette, excludes prior sales.
It's a new year everywhere but at Bennett Chevrolet. Some things don't change because there's still no beating Bennett. That's right. Bennett Chevy kicks off 2024 just like every other year with the best deals anywhere on new and pre-owned vehicles. You still pay what our GM supplier employees pay, not a penny more. Plus, you keep all the rebates. Unlike many dealers that give you either or, Bennett gives you both. The GM supplier employee price plus all the rebates. And you save even more with Bennett's available 1.9% financing. Looking for used? Get an astounding $8,000 minimum for any old clunker towards any pre-owned in stock. That's at least $8,000 for total junk. So imagine how much Bennett pays for a good trade. And Bennett still offers the best buying experience in the business, with a sales team paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. Imagine that. Salespeople with your best interest in mind. Together, let's drive at Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennick on 97.3 ESPN and on the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Checking the text board at 609-403-0973. And of course, I'll give you my picks here for the weekend of the NFL divisional round of the playoffs. Sixers basketball tonight versus the Magic here on 97.3 ESPN. Tom McGinnis bringing you all the action at the top of the hour. George in Summers Point, as promised, he sent in a text at 609-403-0973. He says, hey, Josh, so what you're saying is that it's really not Sirianni's fault that the Eagles played as poorly as they did this year. Rather, it's because of the poor coordinators that he had, plus the issues with player personnel that haunted them all year, that actually caused them to lose all those games. George Summers Point goes on to say, even that is true, still have a hard time believing that the head coach, who is supposed to be in charge of everything, could not do something to stop the losing last half of the season. To me, Sirianni still indict Sirianni, George Summers Point says, and I cannot see him as a successful coach in this team in the future. George Summers Point, I don't disagree with you. I wasn't vindicating Sirianni of all blame. But what I'm trying to explain, I'm looking at it as I can't put all the blame on one guy. Because if it was all Sirianni, why is everyone not turning on him? Go back to Chip Kelly in 2015. Everyone hated Chip. There were guys on and off the record ripping him. Chip Kelly was universally despised and disliked, and it forced Jeffrey Lurie to do something he had no interest in doing. He fired Chip Kelly before the season ended. Look at Jeffrey Lurie's history. That's not how he usually operates. Lurie is not a guy who likes to fire people in season. But he had to because the environment was so horrible. They couldn't rectify it. They couldn't work around it. They couldn't get around it. So what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of people who want to blame Sirianni first and foremost for everything. And I can't do that. What I'm saying is, to paraphrase Jason Kelsey, it's the whole team. It's everybody. Sirianni is at fault for not having the foresight, not having the vision, not having the wherewithal to know and understand what on earth was wrong. Sirianni said himself, if I knew how to fix it, we would have done it by now. That's part of the problem. To me, that's where Sirianni is at fault. But I'm not blaming Sirianni when we know that these guys are not hired by him directly. Eagles general manager Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie, they do a lot of the picking of the coordinators. Remember, Jim Schwartz was hired before Doug Peterson was, basically, in 2016. Jonathan Gannon, he was singled out for the DC before Sirianni ever walked to that podium in that horrible press conference when he was introduced on the Zoom call. This is who the organization is. So I'm not blaming Sirianni for the Sean Desai, Matt Patricia fiasco. And I'm also not blaming Sirianni for Brian Johnson and the OC fiasco. I think part of that was the organization saying, well, we gave Jalen Hurts all this money, so we got to give him his boy as the offense coordinator. Now, should Sirianni have gone to Brian Johnson and said, the way you're calling the offense is not working, let's try to do what Shane Steichen did last year? Now, for all I know, he might have done that and it didn't work. If you want to say that the Eagles hired a bunch of people who don't connect with Sirianni, I'll give you that. So I'm not vindicating him, George Norris' point. I'm not saying he is without blame. What I'm saying is that there's layers to this. And I don't think it's a coincidence that he had all this success with Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon, and he couldn't have the same success with Brian Johnson, Sean Desai, Matt Patricia, and a partridge in a pear tree. That's what I'm talking about. Look, I told Mike Gill in the Sports Bash over an hour ago, if I had my choice, if I was the emperor of football and I could just delineate what the Eagles would do, I would put Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman in Philadelphia, because Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman take every quarterback they touch and they make them better. To me, that's the answer. But I know that's not going to happen. So I am resigned to living in a reality where I understand that I have to think of solutions within the confines that are handed to me by an Eagles organization that is kind of a know-it-all. All right, let's rip through the weekend of the NFL playoff games. A lot of interesting games this weekend. Don't have a lot of time here at the end of the show, but I did want to get to George's text because I always appreciate him texting in to the show. All right, starting tomorrow here on 97.3 ESPN, 4 p.m. is the coverage. Texans and Ravens. I tend to think that this is going to be one of those games where I think the Ravens win. I think they pull away in the end, but I don't think it's going to be as low scoring as they say it is. 43.5 is just way too low for me. I think it goes over that game. I think the Ravens end up winning the game. I think they're just a better team. 49ers, I think, are going to destroy the Packers. Remember, LaFleur and Kyle Shanahan, they know each other. And I think that the Packers don't actually have the talent to take out the 49ers. I think the 49ers cover the 9.5. I think it's going to be a one-sided game in the end. Sunday here on 97.3 ESPN, 3 p.m. is Buccaneers and Lions. I think the Lions win the game, but I think the Bucs cover the 6.5 points. I think it's going to be a very close game. It's going to be a fun and interesting game. I think the Lions pull it off, though, and they get to the NFC Championship. Final game of the weekend, Bills cover 2.5. It's that simple to me. I think the Chiefs are going to have to retool this team, especially this offense in the offseason. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. Give me the under 46.5 in that game. I think it's going to be a rock fight, and I think Josh Allen, the Bills, pull it off this weekend. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. Sixers basketball next.
Saturday morning in the locker room with Billy Schwein, former Kansas City Chief wide receiver Dave Klemick, and producer Nick Earnshaw joining me in the studio. We'll warm things up for you talking Philly sports. Hour one, we'll hear from a big Flyers fan, Dave Leonardi, better known as Sign Man. Dave will tell us how it all started. The sportsbook consigliere Dave Sherapan will check in. Plus, we have a real treat for you. Podcaster Dan Alexander will perform his new song, The Wreck of the Philadelphia Eagles. You don't want to miss it. It's the locker room with Billy Schwein, Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to noon on 97.3 ESPN.
We're from Washington. We love Febrez's new scent. Refresh and energize.
So much we made a song about it.
Breathe happy for free, paradise.
The lineup and 3 wins in a row. The Sixers are poised and ready against the Magic, a team they've beaten 11 of the last 12 times. The Sixers, the Magic, right now coming up live on the Sixers Radio Network.
It's time for 76ers basketball.
Joel one-on-one spins by one man down the lane and a slam. He eats up the rim.
Getting set for tonight's game. It's the 76ers pregame show on 97.5 The Fanatic.
NBA basketball is on the air. Welcome live to the Kia Center here in Orlando, Florida, right off Church Street and I-4 in downtown
Orlando. The Sixers at 26-13, 10-7 on the road, third in the East, taking on the Magic at 22-19. They're eighth in the East. Second matchup of the year. The third one will be later this year, April 12th at the Center. It was back on December 27th. The Sixers won here by 20 without Embiid. They got 20-point performances from both Maxey, Tobias Harris, and DeAnthony Melton. Paul Reed started for Joel, and he had a double-double with 15 and 10. And the Magic have kind of struggled since then. They've had some injuries, including to one of their standout players, Franz Wagner, and they've changed their lineup a little bit. Their most recent game was Wednesday, and they were beaten on a walk-off winner by DeJounte Murray in Atlanta. So the Sixers getting set for the Magic, and we'll hear from Sixers coach Nick Nurse as we move toward tip-off. Coming up, the Sixers in Orlando. This is the Sixers Radio Network.
You expect your home to protect everything you love, but you don't expect the ways water is breaking down your basement and damaging your home. Mold, cracks, and of course visible water are just a few signs your basement is compromised. But there's one way to get answers to all your concerns. A free home inspection from BQ Basements and Concrete. We put water back in its place. Go to basementsbybq.com. License number PA158514, 13VH11822900.
Hey, it's Amanda, and a little thing I love about Chick-fil-A nugget trays is that they're so easy for the holidays. They're warm and flavorful. It's always the crowd pleaser. When I put down a nugget tray, everyone is happy.
Hey, this is Brian, and the little thing I love about the Chick-fil-A nugget trays is the joy that it brings to me and everybody around me during the holidays. They're warm, juicy, and delicious.
Cater the holidays with Chick-fil-A today. Available on the Chick-fil-A app. Real guests paid for their testimonials.
Hear that? It's the gentle sound of a waterfall on your hike. If you were here, you'd take a deep breath of fresh air, if you weren't so winded. But you're not here. Because your self-care happens out on the road, riding your motorcycle protected by Progressive. And the bugs you wipe from your headlights are all the nature you need. So if you ride, see if you could save with Progressive, America's #1 motorcycle insurer. Get an online quote in as little as 3 minutes. All from the great indoors. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states.